Ramana Tira Vana Shari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Govijana Vallabha Giridharadari Govijana Vallabha Giridharadari Yashoda Nandana Vrajadana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajadana Ranjana Ramuna Tiro Vanotari Ramana Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajka Charishtira Sata Sri Srimad Chidanti Goswami Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayom Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajikachayashtira Sata Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anand Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So we are continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 13, correct? And we're going to read text 29 and 30, correct? Yes, Vaju. Oh, Hare Krishna. Good. Well, we should give a few words of introduction as well to the subject, Srimad Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. And this particular chapter is very interesting. The chapter itself is entitled The Status Quo. And we've been discussing many different topics so far about the universe. And we're kind of getting into now, because this is the Bhagavad Purana, and Purana, as we all know, means history, the history, Pura. Pura is the age, the old. So Purana, the story, the narration of times gone by, the past, what's gone on. Purana is different from itihas because we also have the term itihasa. And the itihasas are true, real histories. But the Puranas are a kind of general description of many, many topics. And particularly the Bhagavad Purana is dedicated to the topic of Krishna in his various Bhagavan, in his various incarnations, his various avatars. And we don't leave out in this, and of course his devotees. In fact, the devotees of Krishna are a special focus of the Bhagavad Purana. Various devotees and their connection with Krishna. But the Bhagavad Purana also describes our universe. And today's verse will go into that a little bit more. So, we're going to read just the verse 29, and there's a short purport, and then we'll chant together the verse 30. So this is text 29. Savajrakutanga nipatavega vishirna. I'll just chant this one and then we'll chant together the next one. Vishirna kukshis tanayam hudanvan uchishta dirghorni bhutayarivartas chukrosha jagyeshvara pahine meti. And the translation. Diving into the water like a giant mountain, Lord Boar divided the middle of the ocean, and two high waves appeared as the arms of the ocean, which cried loudly as if praying to the Lord, "O Lord of all sacrifices, please do not cut me into two. Kindly give me protection." Purport. Even the great ocean was perturbed by the falling of the mountain-like body of the transcendental boar, and it appeared to be frightened as if death were imminent. So Lord Varaha, or Lord Boar, he's just appeared, very tiny, and become huge. And now he's diving into the universal ocean, the ocean at the bottom of our universe. All right. And the force has brought up these huge waves, and the ocean herself is crying. So let's do the next verse together. Kurai churapraya darayam stadapa utparaparam chiparubrasayam dadarshagam tatra shushupshuragre yam jivadhanim swayamabhyadatta kurai churapraya darayam statapa utparaparam chiparurasayam dadarshagam tatra shushupshuragre yam jivadhanim swayamabhyadatta. Others? Kurai churapraya darayam stadapa utparaparam chiparurasayam dadarshagam tatra shushupshuragre yam jivadanim swayamabhyadatta. Kuraishvara praya darayam stadapa utparaparam chiparurasayam dadarshagam tatra shushupshuragre
yam jivadhanim swayamabhyadatta.
Ladies? Paraparam Triparurasayam Yadarshakam Tatra Sushupsharagre Swayamabhyadata Kurai by the hooves, Churaprai compared to a sharp weapon, Daryayan penetrating, Tat that, Apaha water, Utparaparam found the limitation of the unlimited. Triparuhu, the master of all sacrifices. Rasayam, within the water. Dadarsha, found. Gam, the earth. Tatra, there. Susupsuhu, lying. Agre, in the beginning. Yam, whom. Jiva darim, the resting place for all living entities. Svayam, personally. Abhyadatta, uplifted. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Lord Boar penetrated the water with his hooves, which were like sharp arrows, and found the limits of the ocean, although it was unlimited. He saw the earth, the resting place for all living beings, lying as it was in the beginning of creation, and he personally lifted it. Purport. The word rasayam is sometimes interpreted to mean Rasatala, the lowest planetary system. But that is not applicable in this connection, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The Earth is 7 times superior to the other planetary systems, namely Tala, Atala, Talatala, Vitala, Rasatala, Patala, etc. Therefore, the Earth cannot be situated in the Rasatala planetary system. It is described in the Vishnu Dharma. Patala muleshvara bhoga sanghato vinyasya pado pritibhim cha bidbrata yasyopamano nababhuva sochito mamastu mangalya viridhaya hari. Therefore, the Lord found the earth on the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean, where the planets rest during the devastation at the end of Brahma's day. Om Agyanata Mrindasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chukshmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. So again, just a summary where we are. The Earth planet has somehow become submerged in the ocean of devastation Well, the ocean of Garbadak, which is the ocean in which devastation, after which planets go. Anyway, there's so much in this that to give a full description of what's going on in the universe at the time would take volumes. But just to bring us to the present verse, we have heard how this matter was brought to the attention of Brahma, and Brahma is considering what is going to happen, what to do, and all of a sudden, Krishna appears out of his nose. Brahma's at first very, very surprised. Something's come out of my nose. And it's this size. It's described that, of course, Brahma's thumb is half the universe. But anyway, it's quite small. And then all of a sudden becomes as big as a mountain. And now that shape has come into focus. It's a boar, a pig. Okay, now we're really getting far out. Far out. And this glorious boar, this is not we have to be clear, this is not the kind of pigs that are raised on the farms in upstate New York. This is more like the wild boar of, that, what is it, Obelisk would be looking after, or whatever. There's some, those of you are familiar with those comics of the French, I guess. Anyhow. Big, hairy, spiny tusks like this. They're dangerous creatures. Anyone encountered a wild boar outside of a zoo? No. You have? In India? Where? Ohio. Ooh, they must be really vicious. Ohio boars. They've got big tusks, and they're strong. So this is Varaha. And he's emerged, and his hooves are sharp, and he's diving into this ocean. And we're going to hear now in the next verses what happens, what's going to happen. What's this great boar going to do? Earlier in this text, or in this chapter, it's described that the incidents of this Lila that we're hearing in this chapter are actually a composite of Varaha's appearance in two different times. One is in the Sveta Varaha millennium, and the other is in the Chakshusha millennium. Okay, so this is one interesting feature of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, unlike a modern historical text, which would be very careful to put everything in the proper order of this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, because the subject is Varaha. So what Varaha does in one millennium and what he does in another comes together. And I would suggest, and this is just my own suggestion, that the description of how the earth has come into the Garbhodakshaya ocean is perhaps related to the Sveta Varaha millennium, whereas the description of how the earth comes by the evil intents of Hiranyaksha, because we also hear that the earth is in its predicament because it's been thrown down by Hiranyaksha, who has been exploiting the earth. We've also heard that the earth has dropped down because of his activities. So there are many different backstories to explain how the earth comes to be in this place. But the topic of today's verse is interesting in that it brings up the existence of the lower planetary systems. Now, to begin here, I was trying to find, well, this is something else. What can I learn about all of this? How can I talk about it? And I came across something that gave me some hope. Let me see if I can find it here. And that's the next step. I've got to find what I'm talking about. Okay. So a god brother of mine who is into all this, cosmology and so on, he was writing about the subterranean planets, etc. And he quotes a conversation with Srila Prabhupada, which gave me some hope. And I'll read it. This is from a room conversation in June of 1977 in Vrindavan. Okay. With Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So Prabhupada says, and now he's referring to his work, his translations, especially of the 5th canto. We're in the 3rd canto and we're hearing some things, but when we get to the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it's going to be filled with descriptions of the universe and the mandalas and the lokas and the planets and the this and the that and everything, and it's tough. So Prabhupada says, and it was not possible for me to digest. And he gives a little laugh. Somebody else helped me to. I am a layman. I do not know. Tamal Krishna. How did you write it? Again, he's referring to the 5th canto particularly. Prabhupada. That somebody, Krishna, helped me. That he manufactured. When I was writing, I was praying, Krishna, that I do not actually accommodate all this knowledge. Please help me. Yes, that's all right. So I took a little hope because what to speak? I mean, if Srila Prabhupada can say something like this. Of course, my godbrother points out that given time, Srila Prabhupada, with his capacity to understand things, would have been able to accommodate. Me, on the other hand, I don't have the capacity. I can't accommodate it. I don't understand it. I don't understand this universe as it's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But I can try to understand it, beginning with hearing about it. So today we've heard a little bit about lower planetary systems. So this is a very interesting phenomena. Because when we start to think about lower planetary systems, if we start looking at the universe in terms of different gradations of living situations, if we think in terms, well, there are higher worlds, and there are lower worlds, and then there are middle worlds, because that's basically the description of our universe. There are and again, what is a universe? Don't ask me that. I don't know. When we speak of a universe, are we talking about our solar system? Are we talking about all the solar systems? What are we talking about? I can't answer that. But whatever it is, there are higher, middle, and lower parts of it. And when we hear about the higher planets, we hear about heavenly planets. Now, this is a really important thing for us because the concept of heaven is what we grew up with, right? We grew up, and today there are so many literatures and people talking about heaven. When someone dies in our Western culture, then particularly the children and others, they talk to each other, well, she's gone to heaven. Even there's there was a book or a movie or something, All Dogs Go to Heaven. Even the dogs, right? The family dog. Recently, one of our anyway. So, well, don't worry. She's gone to heaven. This is the consolation that we all hear that, well, they've gone to heaven. There is a series now on some, what is it, Netflix or something like that. What is after death? Is there life after death? And the first part of the series deals with mediums. No, excuse me, near-death experiences. So all these people are there in this. I was curious. I watched some of it, and they describe how, they're clinically dead. One of the persons I remember was describing how she was in a kayaking adventure, and circumstances, whatever, she just went right over a huge waterfall, and which was planned. They were all going over this waterfall, but the way she went, because somebody else did something or whatever, she just crashed through this waterfall, broke every bone in her body, was submerged. Somehow she was brought out, and somehow she comes back to life in a hospital. And she describes her experience. There was a light and this and that. And I can't remember exactly, but basically almost all of them that were relating in this show, they all had this kind of light experience, and they met their loved ones, and many of them said, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want, it was so beautiful. It was, and the description is heavenly, right? So the reports that we hear, there's a famous physician who speaks about, who was an atheist and then has a near-death experience and meets, some heavenlies. So this is the conception that we have, that for most of us, we all think, well, when we die, we'll go to heaven. Of course, then there is the conception that there's hell. Ooh, and that hell is really bad. Really bad. And then there's the question, well, are these eternal? You go to heaven and you stay there. You go to hell and you're eternally in damnation. Right? Then there's reincarnation. You don't go there, you just come back into this world. But are there other worlds? So this question of what happens after we die, and where are these places? What else is there? Is this it? Is this Earth planet all there is in terms of living place? Is there life on other planets? So the question, where are these other planets? What is out there? So these questions of worlds, the worlds beyond, the worlds that we don't see, the worlds that we suspect. And there are some evidence. People leave their bodies, they see something. So the question of other worlds is one that all of us have. And the Bhagavatam talks about them, talks about the other worlds. And those worlds are divided into these three categories: the upper, middle, and lower. Now, the Bhagavatam also talks about the spiritual world. This is the main distinction that we have to focus on. When people in general speak of heaven, when heaven is described, or heavenly is described in the common parlance, we think about a place, a wonderful place where we can enjoy life without limit, heavenly pleasure. In Christian and Abrahamic traditions, that world also has the benefit. It is a world of pleasure. In Islam, there's descriptions of, which I won't get fully into, of heavenly delights. And of course, all of these descriptions of heaven are characterized by God's presence, that they're God's kingdom. But the conception of God's kingdom is a place where God rules. He's there. He's keeping everything together. And like a benevolent father. That's the conception that generally we have in Abrahamic and Western traditions. God is the Father. God is the benevolent, loving Father who creates a home for us, a heavenly home in which we can enjoy, right? Always in awe, always with reverence for our Heavenly Father. Perhaps the most detailed descriptions are in the Mormon tradition, where they, in fact, try to recreate these. Have any of you visited a Mormon? You can't visit a Mormon temple if you're not Mormon, okay? But you can visit the lobby of a Mormon temple. Have you ever gone? Okay, so you've gone to, okay. In Salt Lake City, particularly where the main big temple is, they have a place where visitors can go, and there's a lobby. And in that lobby, or in that reception area, they have a model of what's inside the temple. And they have some videos that you can watch and so on. So you can't go in yourself unless you're a Mormon and baptized, etc. But you can see what it is. And they have one room, which is, I think they call it the celestial room. And this is a part of the temple which is supposed to be like, the most opulent environment. And it's all plush furniture and so on. Frankly speaking, I looked at it and I said, this is a bit kitsch. I know what kitsch means. European. You don't know what kitsch means. What's a good example of kitsch? Fake bling. Okay. You know what bling is? Okay. All right. It's supposed to be diamonds and emeralds, but it's made out of plastic. Okay, so this is gaudy. Gaudy is a good word Yeah. So anyhow, this is the conception of heaven. And we'll get to what the difference is between heaven and the spiritual world. Because in this world, there is heaven. We have heaven in the Vedic understanding of heaven is that it is a material place. It's a material place, and there's two types of heaven. There's the upper heaven, and there's the lower heaven. This description here today, Atala, Vitala, Patala, and so on, these are described later. I'm not sure which canto. Anyway, is it the fifth canto? No. The subterranean heavenly planets? In the fifth canto, these are all described as the subterranean heavenly planets. Okay, so there's 14, because this is, Prabhupada talks about, that is 7 times higher or 7 times better. Earth is 7 times better. That's the word, what he describes here. So that 7 times means that it is, there are 7, I guess. Anyway, I didn't count. Atala, Vitala, Patala, Rasatat, and so on. There's 7 of these worlds that are below the earth. Earth is in the middle, and then there's 6, or I guess there must be 6, because there's 14, so Earth is 1. So if there's 7 below, then there's 6 above. Earth is in the middle. So there's these upper worlds, and there's these lower worlds. And the lower worlds are described to be heavenly. They're heavenly. They're heaven. They don't have any sunshine, but they have light everywhere. They don't have day and night. They don't fear death. They have everything. The varieties of sexual enjoyments they have are unlimited. They have everything. Except awareness of themselves, who they are, and awareness of Krishna, the Supreme, and the love that is possible between Krishna and the Jiva. They're immersed in their enjoyment. Of course, it does come to an end. That's the other feature of these heavens. It's not that these are eternal heavens, as described in some traditions. The eternal heavenly world, that is Krishna's world. But it's not heavenly in this same way as these worlds are. It's very important for us. It's very, very important for us to understand where we want to go. Where do we want to go? If we want to go to heaven, as described here, or perhaps we'd rather go to the heaven of Atala and Vitala, I mean, it sounds pretty good, you know. From a material point of view, it's really attractive. Or do we want to go to the heavens of Indra? We want to go to those heavenly worlds where filled with lakes and gardens and beauty. Is that where we want to go? Wherever we want to go, we have to buy that ticket. Yesterday I was reading there's a course, anyway, on hermeneutics, and it was describing how Siddhanta should be concise. And the author, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, of this particular article is suggesting that for us, we could turn to Srila Prabhupada's purport to the last verse of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. That is the purport which is found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 4 verses of the Bhagavatam that Brahma himself heard are described. And it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada comments more fully and deeply on the last verse of this Chatushloki in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me see if I can find it here. Just give me a second. So, there, Srila Prabhupada begins with what the author, he is proposing that this purport is like a concise explanation of our entire philosophy. Every aspect of our philosophy is contained. The core, the fundamental tenets of Krishna consciousness are within this one purport. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 153 to 156. So Adi 156. So, yes. And he begins, one should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened, even if one continuously performs pious activities for thousands of lives. So pious activities are the tickets to go to the heavenly planets. You want to go to heaven. Be good and go to heaven. Be bad and go to hell, right? I mean, that's the basic formula for modern religious perception. Do good, be good, and get the reward. Get the reward. Get the heavenly reward. But do bad, be sinful, and you also get the rewards of sin. You have to suffer in hell. Bhagavatam gives the same. Be pious. Do pious work. Enjoy heaven. Commit sins, and you'll have to suffer in hell. The consolation is that it won't last. Your hellish suffering will run out because this is karma. This is all karma. By karma, you can go up. By karma, you can go down. And as the karma is exhausted, you end up where? In this plane. So this earthly plane is considered to be the plane of generating karma. It's the karma generation platform. And the upper worlds and the lower worlds are the karma spending platforms. And I couldn't find out, I'm curious to know, what are the particular kinds of pious work that gets you to enjoy in the subterranean heavenly planets? Or what is it? What's the formula for going to the lower planets as opposed to the formula for going to the higher planets? I don't know. You'll have to research. But here Prabhupada is saying that those tickets, the ticket that you get by pious activity for thousands and thousands and thousands of births, won't
give you the price. All that pious work will not pay the price of the ticket that you need to get out of this world and to go to Krishna's world. Now, what is Krishna's world like? Of course, Krishna has various worlds. He has Vaikuntha, which in many ways may be seen as sort of similar to the heavenly worlds. It's opulent. People are engaged. They have wives and husbands. But their pleasure, the source of their pleasure, is not the world that they're inhabiting. It's not coming from the arrangements of that world. It's coming from their opportunity to serve Krishna, their ability to be connected with Krishna, to experience love for Krishna and to experience his love. That's the source. And Krishna's world, because in Vaikuntha, he takes the form of Vishnu, he takes the form of Narayan, he has 4 arms. Lakshmi is with him. But when we get to Goloka, when Gop Kumar entered into Goloka, he observed, this looks just like my village. It wasn't some amazingly opulent place. Of course, as he engaged and get more and more experience, then the beauty would overwhelm. But Krishna's world is not characterized by gold and everything just opulent and heavenly in that way. Filled with forest flowers. It's a bit wild. And that's what Krishna likes. But the characteristic of this world is not its opulent, sensual pleasures and delights. It's the depth of love, the experience of love. And the ticket is the intense desire for it. Lolyam. So in just these 2 beginning sentences, and the whole purport goes on to enumerate the basic tenets of Krishna consciousness, we have the most fundamental principle for all of us. We have to decide where we want to go. We have to decide our goal in life. We have a choice. We can choose to accumulate good work, get a nice birth in the next life, good karma, not only in the next life, but in this life too. We act appropriately, we do things right, we can enjoy to some extent until the body gets old and disease comes, and of course finally death, and it's all whatever we've accumulated or in pleasures of this world are gone. But if we've observed the good karmic rules, then we get a nice new body. And if we're really, following the Vedas especially properly, we can go to the heavenly planet, Svargaloka. So we have this choice. We can move in that way. But if we reflect that we've been there, we've done that, we don't remember, but we've all been there. We've all done it. We've been to these heavenly planets in our past lives. We've been up and there. We've been everywhere. But we just are stuck here in this cycle of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. Sometimes high and sometimes low. If we decide, and we have the choice now, to get out of this cycle and to go home, go back to Godhead, go back to Krishna. And for that ticket, Srila Prabhupada describes, how do we get that ticket? So, when one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken. So we have to create a relationship. And how we do that, that's sambandha, and then it's the rest of the verse describes, the purport goes into detail. Finally, ending up that one must learn the process of devotional service in its two aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress. So it's devotional service. That is the process to achieve not pious activities, not thousands and thousands of pious, but simply service, simply devotional service. Shinvatam Svatakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. Shinvatam Svakata Krishna. Hearing about Krishna. Vidyam taksto hi badrani vidunoti suhrit satam. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Any comments, questions on this topic today? Hare Krishna. We're at time for breakfast, and I've gone a little over. But Noah, you have a, yes? Okay.
I'd like to start, of course, thank you. Quick question I had was, with generating good karma in order to make it to the higher realms, what would you say, like what type of activities would you say are good karma generating? Like, is it like pious behavior?
You have to speak a little louder. I'm not quite hearing you.
Like what type of behavior would you say are activities or good karma generating, such as like, is it like pious behavior or devotional service or?
Didn't quite understand the question.
His question is, what kind of activities generate good karma? You were mentioning good
Oh, yeah, there's karma. Well, there are two kinds of karmic practices for generating, for achieving good karma. There's what we would call general pious work. We call that pious work or good work. You know, that could be planting trees, opening a hospital, giving charity to someone in need, feeding the hungry, clothing all these type of Good Samaritan activities, we call it, in Christian tradition. Helping each other. These are all good work. And all that good work, which is, we can understand just basically by simple morality and simple principle. The simple, what is it, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You follow that, that is good, that will give you good karma. Then there's another category, which is sacrifice. So sacrifice is there's a system of karmic activity which is directed towards the universal powers. Now, in this world, we get good karma by being good to each other, right? But there's others in this universe. There are gods. We call them demigods. There's that are making the wind blow and making. Nothing is happening in this universe just by chance. There are living beings behind everything. Behind the sun, behind the moon, behind the wind, behind the oceans. We heard today about the ocean. The ocean was praying, help me, come on, don't split me up. Right? So every aspect of nature has a personality. And they also can be pleased. So there's the doing good where you just are basically helping one another out. And then there's the next level of helping, giving pleasure to someone. You give pleasure to someone and you get the good fruit of that. And when you give pleasure to the universe reciprocates. So to get into these heavenly universal situations, you have to propitiate, you have to give sacrifices, you have to perform all kinds of rituals and so on, which are described in the Vedic literature in order to propitiate and please the universal powers. And when they're pleased, when they've gotten your tickets, you've paid your price, they give you your ticket. So their price is the price that the universal powers have for entry into their heavenly worlds is a combination of good work and sacrifices. And those sacrifices have to be done appropriately according to the proper rules and the proper traditions, etc. So it's a bit, and it can be quite frustrating also, though, because if you screw up, if you don't do your sacrifices right, there are occasions where we've heard of, in the Bhagavatam tells about individuals who missed, they did something a little wrong and they got a completely different result. So it's a little, tricky business, this get to heaven stuff. Fortunately, Krishna is not like that. Krishna is known as Bhavagrahi Janardhan. He's not so concerned with the details. He knows you're going to slip up here and there. He knows that you can't do everything perfectly. And instead, he is Bhavagrahi. He's looking for your intention. What is your intention? That's what he accepts. So Noah, did that answer your question? Okay. Anyway, it's quite complicated. Again, I don't have any answer. That's what I just described as getting to the worlds of the Pitris. There's lots of descriptions of these worlds. Indraloka, Pitriloka, Tapaloka, Mahaloka. Every world in the upper worlds have their own sort of tickets and airline, what you call it, which airline goes to Oslo, So, okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jai.
All right. What, are you ready for breakfast? Yeah, it's like a stew. It's called kitri. Rice and beef stew. What do I think? We should have dramas. More dramas. Touch a Pancaratna is an actor. That's why he's always so. Oh, he's an actor? Yeah. I mean, yeah,